You right there?
Just checking the formations.
Welcome along to this evening's Premier League tonight. If you want to join in the debate, use the hashtag Peel tonight. As you can see, Robbie Savage has joined us. Look, Robbie, while you were making your way over to the studio, Sam was speaking to Des Kelly after the game. You know, squarely laid the blame at his players' door, really, saying they didn't do the job for him today. Yet he chose to make 5 changes after Everton's first win since Christmas in midweek. He chose to go 3 at the back. Surely a fair amount of what happened today lies with the manager, no?
Yeah, I couldn't understand why he changed. Went 3 at the back, you know. Mangala, Williams and Keown didn't perform as a collective group, and I heard the guys at half-time saying defensively they were so poor. But you win as a team and a manager, and you lose as a team and your manager. So, you know, it just was a poor day at the office of Everton.
He wasn't using the word we, though, was he, when you say that they lose as a team? He very much was sort of talking about the players, wasn't he, in that interview?
Well, kind of us and them, isn't it? And but that's the way he's chosen to go. He's the experienced manager. He knows what he's doing. He's calling for a reaction from his players. But yes, he's a part of the problem today because he made so many changes from midweek. And as I say, the back catalogue of videos it'll have within his disposal is that they played very poorly, playing with a 3 at the back under Keown in the season. The players just they look like strangers out there today together in that first half.
Anything to add? Detail, actually, in just a couple of moments about Pep Guardiola and the decisions that he made today. It wasn't a good day for Manchester City. They dropped points for just the 4th time this season in the Premier League. We'll hear from him in a moment, Pep. But first, here's a City fan, Walter Smith.
Just back from the game today, Manchester City won, Burnley won. Ultimately, a little bit disappointed with the result, but fair play to Burnley. They pushed us more than most teams have done this season. Pep Guardiola seems to be a bit confused with his substitutes and didn't name as many as he could. Can't say I blame him after some of the absolute horror tackles that have gone in unpunished against Manchester City players this year. Dele Alli, I'm looking at you. Harry Kane, I'm looking at you. Disgusting. Maybe the FA should look into that.
They are injured, so they would like to have 18 players, having 17, because the other ones, I could call one of the second team, but they played a game yesterday, I think so, in the last moment. But the others are injured, that's why you have just 16 players.
Look, it's fair to say there wasn't much sympathy for Pep Guardiola not having enough players to put someone on the bench. And yes, the under-23s did play last night for City, but that seat on the Manchester City bench is surely one of the most valuable seats in world football. You get to see a team talk from Pep. You get to be 5 yards away from him while he's posturing on the touchline, telling his players what to do. You get the experience of a first-team game. And even if they played last night, surely every single one of those under-23s or youth team players or reserve players would have done whatever they can to get there and be in that seat and be there.
Well, the 23s would have had 5 substitutions, I should imagine, and you can only use 3 of them, so 2 of them subs would have been unused, so he could have used one of them. He could have used one of the subs that come on who hasn't played a full game. He's sending a message out. He's sending a message out to say that he's not happy with the level of how aggressive some of the tackles have been on his team. That's what he's doing, but I think he's denied an opportunity to a young kid to get probably the experience of a lifetime.
100%. To be around those what are really outstanding players, the way the manager is, how he behaves, the preparation, the bench, and just being involved and building for the future.
It's also a message, isn't it, to the entire academy? The player, you could even pick a player that isn't going to come on and play, but it just puts the message out there to all the young lads in the City Academy that there is a route to the first team here. Yeah,
well, you know, I'm sure when we were growing up, me more so than probably Stephen and Martin, you know, I was 17th man at times when there was 5 subs in the Premier League, and you'd go on the bus with the first team, you'd make the tea, you'd be like running around doing their boots, and to be 17th man to get the experience at Leicester City, just seeing, to being involved was an amazing experience. Then I had my opportunity on the bench, then got in the first team. So what a great thing would have been for a youngster to, as you said, to see what happens in the first team environment. Surely you can get 18 players. You know, on the opposite side of that, if that was a team in the lower half of the table who put 6 subs out with a lesser squad, would people be making such a fuss? Is it because it's Man City?
They have message at their training. We go to their wonderful training ground. They have like a stepping stone to the first team. They have basically a stadium for each team to play on before they can get to. That's their vision. Well, someone really should be looking careful at that, because they've got to put somebody, they've got to fill that position on the bench. They're denying someone an opportunity. There's enough young kids within the club. To tell me they haven't got enough players...
It's a wasted opportunity.
It's quite remarkable. I cannot believe that.
And I understand your point about, is it because it's Manchester City? I don't think it is. I think any Premier League team in the current climate, with the amount of money they have to spend, would get criticised for leaving an empty space.
I agree, but
there are teams in League Two today, Robbie. There are teams in League Two that named 6 subs today, and if they can, surely any Premier League side should do. What message does it put to the academy, to the youngsters at that club? You're currently working with the under-18s at Liverpool.
If I had been shining in the 23s, or I was on the fringe, I'd knock at his door. I'd knock at his door and say, boss, look, you picked 6 subs of the weekend. I've been doing really well in the 23s. Now, he would have knew he only had that amount of subs well before the 23 game played, so he could have pulled one of them out and said, you're not playing the 23s tonight because I need you for this sub thing. So there's no excuse for any Premier League team to name 6 subs in this day and age. There's no excuse. Unless there's been an illness that runs through the club and 8 have got the flu, or there's been a food poison or something, there's no excuse.
And it would have been reward for the player in the 23s that played the night before that might have been the best player. He's not going to get on in the first team, but he sits on the bench and it's a part of his development, being a part with the first team.
And surely when you name a squad this day and age, as when we played, you probably name 2 or 3 extra players. And I know the game, and it was an away game. So what if somebody would have got ill at the morning of the game? That would have been 5 subs on the bench. So,
or 2 injuries in the warm-up.
Correct. So surely in this day and age, as Stephen said, but I'm only highlighting the fact because it's Man City and where they are, who Pep is, more would be made of it if it was a West Brom or Watford or Southampton doing it. No.
And look, there's very little to criticise Pep for this season. He's having a fantastic season as a football club.
Yeah, but we're not criticising him for the job he's done.
No, of course, absolutely, yeah.
It's the manager's prerogative who he picks and how many and who when. We get all that. But imagine being a kid, Jay, at that academy. What are you thinking tonight?
Are you saying you'd knock on his door after the decision he's made today?
If I'd been
Monday
flying
morning?
in the 23s and I felt close enough, or I'd say to him, come on. If you're not going to put me on, now, when are you going to put me on?
And that's the attitude the young players need within the academies. You know, they feel that they're aggrieved that they're embarrassed by the fact that
if you're not going to get on with 6 subs, if you're in the 23s now, when is it going to happen?
Well, if someone knocks on Pep's door tomorrow morning or Monday morning, we'll know they were watching Premier League tonight, won't we? Let's talk then about something that you mentioned, which is about the fouls, and you think he was maybe trying to make a point about the fact that City have been the victim of some horrible fouls in recent games. Graham Poll is part of the team with us. Hello, Graham.
Hi, Jake.
I think there is a case to answer, isn't there, for teams going in hard against City in recent games, right?
Yeah, there is. I mean, we've seen some tackles go in. Bennett clearly stands out on Leroy Sané, which was a shocking tackle. But you know, I don't see.
Graham, that was in response to the claims from Manchester City that the players are being targeted.
I think that's a response from the manager who's playing Man City next time to say we're not going to change our approach because Pep's complaining. We're not all going to change and dance to his tune. And you know that's what I look at. You know, you can look at a number of fouls, of course you can. But I just think the one thing that you miss is whether a referee sends the player off for the foul or not. The injury is still caused. So had Bennett been sent off last week, Leroy Sané would still be out for 5 or 6 weeks. It doesn't actually save the injury. It just gets the correct punishment.
Do you think that referees are going to change the way they referee City games in the next few weeks because of all these stories that are rolling around?
Not at all. Not at all. Because you shouldn't have special treatment for one team or a different team. You go out to referee each incident on its merits. You have to be aware if there's one player which the opponent's team are picking on, you need to be aware that he's getting fouled time and time again. You know, if a player fouls 4 times, you caution him for persistent infringement. So if an opponent is fouled 5 times by 5 different players, you caution the 5th player to foul him for team fouling because they're picking on a particular player. That's what you're aware of. But you don't go out thinking, oh, I've got Manchester City today, I better be careful, I better look out for red card tackles.
I think Guardiola was saying, wasn't he, that the artists, the top players, they need to be protected. And you have to agree some of these tackles were completely out of over the top. Pardew, for the next match, West Bromwich Albion, reacts in a way that he thinks, OK, is he aiming that at us because we're playing them next? And we want to make sure, you know, maybe we've got a physical team, so he feels that the referee is going to be influenced a little bit towards City. I don't believe that Guardiola was doing that. I think he just genuinely wants to win 4 trophies, and he can't do it if his artists are going to not be available to play.
OK, thanks, Martin. Graham, thank you very much as well for all your hard work for us today. loads of conversation on social media about the things we've been talking about. Let me just run a few of your thoughts. Andy Stock says, you can now understand why Jordan Sancho went to Dortmund from City. It was a chance to play. Tom Donaghy, amongst all the criticism on City's academy, Diaz is an academy player and he came off the bench today. C. Horan, Pep did something every single City fan would criticise Jose for. No excuse for naming 6 subs. Darren Chayton said, look what happened to a certain Marcus Rashford when United didn't have enough players. Remember that? Martial broke down in the warm-up as we were talking about, and that gave Rashford his chance. Ashley Chapman says, it's not that simple. You don't play a youngster if you feel they aren't ready. It would knock their confidence or even lead to them.
We're not saying play them.
Yep.
We're not saying the kid has to come on the bench and play. We're talking about an experience to get next to the first team and what will that give that kid confidence-wise going into his next training session. Absolutely. We're not saying he has to play.
It just feels like a waste of an opportunity, doesn't it? That's all we're saying. Sat there today at Burnley, completely empty, and someone, somewhere in that City academy, just could have had the chance of a lifetime to see Pep at work. Right, we're going to take a quick break. Of course, as always, we want your three-word match reports here on Premier League Tonight. And after the break, having written a column in his newspaper about it, Robbie Savage will tell us why he thinks that Leicester, his old club, were wrong to make Riyad Mahrez stay at the club. It's going to be an interesting chat after the break, because something tells me that Martin thinks slightly differently. See you in a moment. Welcome back to this evening's Premier League Tonight. Lots of comments coming in about our first part discussion. Ben Trant, who's a Stoke fan, says Gerrard's passion talking about the Man City bench and academy debacle is refreshing to see. Sorry that our under-18s ruined your record on Friday. A wry smile. Cockney Spurs, I 100% agree with the guys on what they were saying about Pep only naming 6 subs. Promote a youth player who's worked hard and deserves a bit of recognition. And a few through match reports. Joel, Sterling should have scored. Would have picked up all 3 points probably for City, that would. Phil Scade says better than Wednesday. I'm guessing they're a Man United fan. And Steve Cowell, lack of investment. He supports West Ham. Right, it's time to talk Mahrez. It's time to talk Leicester. Let's hear from Jamie Thorpe, who's a Leicester fan.
The Riyad Mahrez situation still rumbles on despite the transfer window being closed. He's been absent from training now 3 or 4 times and no one's really sure if it's with or without the club's permission. All we know is it's been handled really, really disappointingly, and it's been the complete polar opposite to the departure of Andy King, who left after 13 years and handled it with a lot of grace. If he does come back, though, and he puts the work in, having said that, all would be forgiven and all would be forgotten. But if he does come back and he downs tools, as has been the case with some of the players over the years, then it will be a sad end to what has been a really terrific career with the club.
Right, Robbie, explain to the guys here, to anyone at home that didn't see your column this week, what you wrote about and why you think that Leicester should have perhaps allowed Riyad Mahrez to get the move he wanted.
Well, listen, Leicester don't owe Mahrez anything. You would say they got him for a good price, 400,000, probably made him what he is in the Premier League. You know, I believe if Mahrez was good enough, somebody else would have picked him up by Leicester, because if you're performing well in the French league, somebody will pick you up because it's a good market for clubs to go into and find talent. He was certainly one, went there for £450,000 and performed exceptionally well. PFA Player of the Year 2 years ago. Premier League, stayed for the Champions League campaign, and now you've got to look at him his point of view as a player. He's had an opportunity to go and play with some of the best players in the world, be coached by probably the best manager in the world. People will say he's got on his contract out, he's under contract, so he should get his head right and go back and perform. But it's not as easy as that sometimes. Yeah, I was in a similar situation at Birmingham Blackburn Rovers. I set my heart, my goal, my dream was to go and play for Mark Hughes, and I'd done everything I could to force that move through wrongly. You know, I've admitted in this show before that I had a month to get out of that football club and I was a disgrace. I kicked the ball away. We've been through it, but I got what I wanted. Everybody's different. Stevie might not have done that, might not have done that, but that was my dream. It was like going to the shop, buying a lottery ticket and winning it. Not in terms of financial, but everything I wanted. You know, and I think Mahrez now be in a position where he's £60 million where Leicester would have made 59 million quid. Their valuation might have been 75. So if their valuation has not been met, Mahrez will stay, and he stayed. But what is the point of having a player there whose head's been turned, might not be in the right frame of mind? He's got to go back there now. They've got to convince him to perform. But it's like he might have gone to get that lottery ticket, lost it. He'd be sitting at home now thinking, oh, I had the lottery in my pocket. Not in terms of financial, but everything. The best players in the world, Champions League football, winning trophies. And I think he's given everything to Leicester he possibly could, performed on a weekly basis, and now is going to go back and try and perform for Leicester.
Just to take you back there, Robbie, and it's not about you, but do you regret that? Forcing a move in the way you did? Because I personally feel it's you regret it. Well, I'm glad you said that, because I think he'll regret that. His behaviour, the way that he's been in all this period. What he's done for Leicester, of course, is without doubt. But what they've done for him, they've really put him on the map. He's a legend at that club forever for what they've achieved there. Players will never do that again at Leicester. And I just feel it's a bit disappointing. Maybe it's an educational thing to disappear for 2 or 3 days. The manager's Puyo's doing everything to say he's a good guy. Well, he's not completely a good guy, because you don't behave like that. This day and age. He needs to come back to Leicester, get on with his football. I knew this was going to be an issue. The player had a chance, but I think in Barcelona he wanted to go to as soon as they were champions. He was persuaded to stay. I think Liverpool were interested. Arsenal have been sniffing around. He is a great talent. He's developing under Puyol. He's getting better every week. But now I think he's got his due. He's got to come back. He's got to get back into heel. And they'll sell him. They'll sell him in the summer. And if you're a good player and you've got good quality, the big clubs will come calling again.
If he goes back and performs, if he goes back then, gets his head right and performs, and performs amazingly well again, what if that price goes up? Because the performance being that good, the price goes up.
Well, it shouldn't
Their valuation from 75 to 100. And then they say, somebody offers 80, well, we're not going to let him go this summer.
It's about him realising how good he is. Maybe he's thinking he's trying to cash in. How does that look for a club that's trying to buy him? He's in his behaviour.
But the best team one of the best teams in the world at the minute, once, Riyad Mahrez. And for him, as a player, Martin, he's got an opportunity. He's desperate to go and play for Pep Guardiola.
They've allowed Drinkwater to go, they've allowed Kante to go, they've allowed Vardy to have talks.
Kante had a clause, so I accept
that. And he thinks it's personal, but it's not personal. He's a very good player. And why should Leicester allow him to leave if they don't want to? It's testing the player. He'll get his move eventually. But while he's there, I think he needs to behave in a slightly better way than he has.
You're right there, Stephen.
I never thought I'd say it, but I'd like to hear a bit more from Robbie Savage and Martin Keown. I'm quite enjoying this.
You agree with me?
Do you want me to get in the middle?
Jake, but I just think that from Riyad Mahrez's perspective, right?
I think you both got a point, to be honest. I get it. Yeah. Man City, top move for Mahrez, chance to work Guardiola. I get all that side of it, but I agree with you, Martin, as well. I don't like players when they're unprofessional and they start not turning in for work and disrespecting the supporters and disrespecting the club that have been good to the player as well. So you're both right on both sides of it. At the end of the day, I think Mahrez's people have got to go to Leicester and come to a sensible conclusion, because at some point he's going to leave the club. I look at the Coutinho situation at Liverpool. Barcelona comes, it's a dream move, okay. Liverpool want him to stay till the end of the season, but Coutinho thinks it might be his only opportunity. But Coutinho stayed professional. He got his people to go and speak to Liverpool, and he was a compromise, and everyone moves on in a nice way. This is just a mess now for Leicester City.
Well,
and I don't think they deserve it.
And he's got to perform in front of his crowd.
Leicester don't deserve the mess,
I think there's a couple of options here. As you're saying, Mahrez's people go to Leicester, he's got a couple of years left, and say, right, tell you what, if he comes back, if it's a ridiculous statement, because that could happen, he could not turn up and he could get fined so many hundreds of thousands of pounds. But in today's game, we all know some players could go back and say, I'm anxious, I'm injured. It can happen. I've seen it. I've seen people do it. Or they could say, I tell you what we'll do. If he comes back, this is what could happen, and as Stevie says, let's renegotiate his contract and have a clause in it for 50 million quid.
It's refreshing, though, that it's all about player power nowadays, and the club have said, you know what, we'd rather have the player than the money. Clearly he's going to go in the summer, and we'll go on our terms and not on the players. It came so late, didn't it?
That was one of the big issues for Leicester, is that they actually made it clear. They said, if we get an offer that matches our valuation, we won't stand in the way of the player. But you've just spent 10 minutes telling us that he's a consistent player and he's a brilliant player and he's won the Premier League and he's won more than Virgil van Dijk. The stats tell us that he was better than Coutinho at times over the last year and a half. And you end up wanting Leicester to accept less than he's worth. You said in your own column he's worth 75 million quid, so why should Leicester take less? That's their valuation.
It's in my opinion what he's worth, Jay. I don't know what Leicester value him at.
Well, obviously more than 65 million, so there's the end of the conversation, isn't it?
Well, that's up to Leicester and Riyad Mahrez. But
the one
he had an opportunity. Sané's got injured and he might be out for 4 to 6 weeks. One opportunity. Pep Guardiola, Man City, might not want Riyad Mahrez in the summer. What if his form dips and he doesn't get an opportunity ever again as a player. As a player, not to... And I know what Stevie's saying about Coutinho. Coutinho's playing for a massive football club in Liverpool. We're talking about Liverpool Football Club here to Barcelona. Leicester City...
Do you see a situation where Riyad Mahrez can come back into the fold and perform for Leicester like he has previously? Can he be rehabilitated from this situation? Remember, in the summer, he was sitting at an airport waiting to get a move, wasn't he? That never transpired, so this isn't new.
I think only the player knows that himself.
But from what you've seen and what you know...
He's capable of it, of course he is. He could turn up tomorrow, train well, and play on the weekend and play well. But
the manager's making it possible for that to happen. He's saying what a good guy he is. He's, you know, the manager's Puyol's doing well. He's trying to manage it through. But if it continues to stay away from the football club, we get another week where he doesn't turn up. One only knows where it could end up. But he's made a case for, I've got to leave this football club. I'll come back eventually, but I need to leave.
One thing that happened, Jake, the players, I believe, I'm sure that if he goes back, the players will have a laugh and a joke with him. They'll have great banter with him. That's what happens in dressing rooms. So people say, well, the players might discard him, but
they'll all be texting him anyway, won't they?
Correct. I'm sure there's banter going on between them all. I know he's lost the man.
Are we also slightly belittling Leicester? Because I don't remember criticism of Southampton when they didn't allow Van Dijk to join Liverpool. I don't remember criticism of Liverpool when they said no to Coutinho getting the move the first time around and asking him to wait. You know, Leicester have stood their ground. We spend all our time saying that players have got too much power in football. Suddenly a club do something that they believe is absolutely right for their principles. And
I'm just talking from a player's point of view.
But you're not the only one, though. Lots of people... I had people the other day saying, oh, they should let him go for 40 million. It's like, he's a top-quality player, and the numbers now are up here, so you've got to pay.
If you look at the City situation, I mean, if they're allowed to just buy their way to success, I think it takes a bit of an edge, actually, off Guardiola's management, because he just goes and buys another player. As soon as he gets another one injured, that's not good for the Premier League. And I think what they've done, City, Leicester City, is just said, no, we're not, for our own reasons, but I think it helps the rest of the Premier League that they didn't allow that transfer to happen.
People are piling in on social media. Onomi says, I totally agree with Robbie Savage. This is the second time Leicester have treated Mahrez badly. They should understand that he wants to grow and develop himself. How much more do Leicester want from him? James Leahy says Leicester would have made £64 million profit. To stop a player moving to a club miles ahead of them is wrong. He will never be the same player for Leicester now. They are in the wrong. PM Legend said the fault is not with Leicester. If Mahrez wanted to leave, City needed to come in for him sooner so they could find a replacement. Leicester have a Sanchez situation on their hands, says Leon, and Hegsy says Leicester fans accept Mahrez will go eventually, just pay his price. You don't go into a car garage and offer 50k for a 100k car because you don't get it.
How have they treated him badly? They've given him an opportunity to come from nowhere to become a Premier League legend at Leicester City. Say no more. They plucked him from nowhere when nobody wanted him, nobody loved him. And the player now can see an opportunity to get vast riches way beyond his dreams.
But somebody would have taken him, sure.
Behave himself in the right manner.
But somebody would have taken him.
Interesting.
Somebody would have taken him because he's good enough. So if you're good enough, in my opinion...
Eventually they will. He doesn't need to...
Do you think maybe his biggest fear is that he sees that this City thing has come about because of the injury to Sane and he just fears that this might not happen again?
Maybe.
No, he will believe that he's good enough to go there and do well.
Well, then he has to play, and he has to play well.
Instead of Sterling. And you see that miss Sterling had today, maybe he's right.
Yeah, but he's been in good form, Sterling. You can't just judge him on one sitter today.
Of course.
You know, though, the best way out of this for everybody is him to come back in the team and play as well as he's always played. There needs to be a compromise
between the club and the player. So the club get him till the end of the season, and then the player gets his move.
I know it's not about me, as Martin said, but I'm just trying to give people a perception there. If I hadn't got my move to Blackburn, I could never have been the same at Birmingham under Steve Bruce. Right. You know, not because I'm a wrong one, and not because I love football, and everybody's a different type of character. I'd have been anxious, nervous. That dream I had would have, I believe, somebody would have stopped me from getting, even though Birmingham would have been in their right, because I'd have just had a new 4-year contract. But it was everything I wanted.
Would you refuse to play? Would you not?
I wouldn't refuse to play, Steve, you know, but I would just felt in my head that, you know, how can people stop me from getting my dream? Do you know what I mean? It was my last opportunity.
But would you have sort of been happy with a compromise if the club said, look, not now, but maybe
I could have gone the summer, I'd have been happy with that,
And I think sometimes that is the best solution when you get a Sanchez case or a Coutinho case or a Mahrez case.
Man City are allowed to offer money for a player later in the window, but Leicester aren't allowed to say no to the player.
I said they are. Leicester are allowed to turn it down, of course they are. But Man City can bid for anybody they want in the world.
Of course they can, but if they'd have bid early, they probably would have got their player, because it would have allowed Leicester...
wasn't injured.
Would have left them time to go and get...
got injured late in the FA Cup.
Yeah, but the minute that injury happened, the bid should have come in and given them another couple of days, no?
Why is it? They can bid when they want.
I blame Sanchez in all this. Why not? Let's just blame him, because if he'd have gone to City, none of this would have happened. And it's interesting, if they'd have waited another week on this one and that deal wasn't tied up with Sanchez, then they would definitely have gone for him City, because they're throwing money to get Mahrez a week later as soon as they lost Sane.
It's a good debate. I enjoyed that. Thank you for bringing your passion to the table, Robbie. It was very interesting. Right, lots more to come. We're going to talk about Football Club Hard Men before too long, and plenty more. Don't go away. Stay where you are. Premier League Tonight continues after the break. Welcome back. Twitter is still ablaze with people discussing the Leicester conversation we just had. Mr. Hampton, would Keown and Gerrard still disagree with Savage if they were playing at a mid-table club and one of the best teams in the world came for them? It's easy to take the moral high ground when you're playing at Liverpool and Arsenal. Yep.
No one ever came for you, did they?
No, it's never going to happen, Jack, really. It happened more than you think, to be fair. Would have happened to you, though, wouldn't it? How many times did you turn down a move?
Quite a few.
There you go. Players can do it, you know. They can turn down.
Yeah, but he's playing for Liverpool, winning Champions League.
Yeah, but they wanted more. There was a period they didn't win the Premier League.
He's still playing Champions League.
He had a chance to go to Chelsea, didn't he? 3 or 4 times, didn't he?
Yeah, but he's from Liverpool, and that's his hometown club.
Of course, I understand that.
Mahrez is different.
Mahrez is, but he's a Leicester man, though, isn't he? Mahrez. What about a bit of loyalty from him? I'm saying he's been plucked from obscurity to do what he did for Leicester.
Where was the loyalty from Leicester for Ranieri? Won the league, a miracle. Yet he lost his job.
Yeah, I don't know if that's quite the same parallel. Okay,
I'm just saying about loyalty in football.
This could go on.
Yeah, but
a couple of quick ones. Brian Muir says, should release clauses be mandatory like they are in Spain?
I missed it. What was that?
Should you make release clauses? Yeah, should we just talk? Should you make release clauses mandatory like in Spain?
It's probably one way to solve it, but then it's arguing, you know, some release clauses are not realistic, are they? Yeah. Especially some of the ones you heard in Spain.
Talk about,
Robbie says it.
You know, the offer you had from Chelsea. You're a one-club man.
How come to this?
Well, because it got mentioned. You don't ever look back and think, actually, a move and to win the Premier League would have been good. Surely you're just like so proud to be a one-club man. No regrets at all.
No. But this situation is completely different from Mahrez's. Liverpool's my team.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's completely different.
And I think sometimes we don't. You underestimate the fact that, you know, we're all English guys in an English country watching the English Premier League, and it's different comparing a local Liverpool lad who stayed at one club his whole career to a player who has already moved countries, he's already playing somewhere else, and you can understand in some ways Mahrez wanting the very best for himself, his family.
Exactly, that's 100% right.
No one's saying that. It's just really, I think it's right and proper for Leicester. If they choose to say they've not met our valuation, then he stays where he is, despite the fact that players shouting and screaming in the background like a small spoiled child. Don't leave him there. Maybe let him rot there for a little while, but they're not doing that. Puyol's trying to bring him back into...
No, Leicester have to behave properly as well. That wouldn't be right for them to do that either.
They are doing that, though. Yeah. They're saying that the player's intelligent and he's a good man and they're welcoming him back. Let's hope that happens. Yeah. And maybe he scores a winning goal against Man City later in the season and we can all congratulate him on that. And then
they've already played them twice.
Well, they can't, maybe... I thought his stats were unbelievable.
You're terrible. See his face, you're like...
Can we move on, Jim? Is this Leicester City show we're talking about here, or what?
We just had a close-up of Martin's face. That's all. It just dropped. Oh. Well, today's results, that's what we're doing, right?
Play them next week.
Play them next week, then.
Let's do it, play them next Saturday.
Yeah.
Right, let's have
you know, Jake.
Let's have a look then at today's results. It's been, I suppose, when we looked down there, it was a really crucial day today, not just for Swansea, who picked up yet another point in their battle against relegation, but also Southampton as well. It was a key day down the bottom. Let's just show you the way the table looks then. After
Leicester have been affected, haven't they?
Manchester City, obviously, having their lead cut a little bit by United. But let's go to the bottom, because that's the sort of real talking point today. Swansea have made it out of the bottom three. A really key day for Southampton as well. Let's just hear from a couple of fans of clubs towards the bottom, and then we'll talk about how that table looks and who you think is going to go down. Have a listen to a couple of fans from Saints and West Brom.
Oh my word, I just feel absolutely exhausted from total despair in the first half to sheer kind of elation and surprise Then letting West Brom back in it when we thought that, when we thought we'd kind of got away with it and gone ahead 3-1. To absolute relief. My word, we needed those 3 points today. What a win. So important for our survival.
We lost 3-2. That was pretty much a must-win game for us in the relegation battle. We need to start picking up points. I don't know what we're going to do, to be honest. We're starting to get cut adrift from the rest of the relegation candidates, so we'll have to see, but pretty much resigned to possibly going down now, so we'll have to see.
I fear for West Bromwich Albion. It was a massive game for them today. Didn't get the result they wanted. You have to say they're clear candidates to go down now. But the teams that have been relegated, the teams that came up this summer, if you look at them, the way that they're starting to fall down the table, and I think that's a concern as well. But who's going to get out of trouble there now? Stoke now falling into the bottom three, Swansea coming out of it, Newcastle looking over their shoulders, Palace again. Big games coming up for them. So it's all to play for. And it might say a little bit about the difference between the quality at the top of the table and at the bottom, but it's a massive fight for survival now.
Who are you most worried about? I mean, we covered Huddersfield together a few days ago.
I think they've all got to be worried, Jake, but I think what's going on at Newcastle, it doesn't seem too healthy up there with the manager and the owners. Slimani has to settle quickly and get them some goals to try and keep them up, but if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be concerned. West Brom, of course. After a good performance at Liverpool, it seems they've gone back to square one again.
But we have, as Martin's already pointed out, we've already at times written off Swansea for being bottom this season. Palace were written off after 6 games when they were rock bottom.
At this stage, you look, our team's got a little bit of momentum or something going for them. Huddersfield, I've watched them quite a lot lately. They've got nothing. They
hit the wall, haven't they?
They'd be my favourites to go. Right. You look at West Brom, they've just got Sturridge in. He'd have to score a run of goals, and it would have to be a miracle to get them out of trouble. But they should all be concerned because the gap's so small to 11th. What is 7 points?
I mean, every one of them's in trouble.
It's a couple of wins, and it looks very different all of a sudden for West Brom, doesn't it? But it's where those wins come from.
Look at Bournemouth. Look at the couple of wins they've gone.
Yeah.
They've gone out of the bottom half of the table.
All the managers on that page will be concerned.
Bournemouth beat Arsenal, Chelsea, and then again to...
The one thing you would say about West Brom, never bottom of the table under Tony Pulis. But the fans saying they were bored, it was dull to watch. Yet they brought a manager in. OK, they're playing better, went to Anfield and scored 3 in the FA Cup, scored 2 today, they're more attractive on the eye, but the bottom of the table, 4 points adrift. So what the fans want? Attractive football, but we might go down, or stability in terms of maybe nicking games 1-0 from a set piece and staying in the Premier League. It's the balance, but some fans would rather play nice football and go down.
I think
nonsense.
When you're down there, everyone will be looking at everybody else's fixtures, and if somebody else now starts to, I don't mean you can live, you sleep well if you're down there at the moment as a professional. I've been relegated at Aston Villa. You're looking at the fixtures, everybody else is, even Watford, they're in free fall. And I'd be thinking to myself, well, look, if we can be better than Watford, we can get out of trouble here. So no one should be giving up, no one should be panicking. But I think West Brom they go home tonight thinking, hold on, we've missed a massive opportunity today.
So taking into account not just the points they've got on the board as well, but the form they're in at the moment, the fixtures they've got to come. Who do you look at the moment there? Who are the 3 teams that concern each of you the most? Starting with you, Stephen. Who would you be most worried about at the moment?
Huddersfield, Stoke and Newcastle.
Why Stoke? You don't think they're going to get a bounce?
I like Paul Lambert, and he's had a bit of a boost since he's come in. But I don't know. I've just got a bad feeling for them this year.
You think West Brom will get out of it then, do you?
I think with Sturridge coming in, I think they've got goals in the team to put a couple of wins together. Yeah. I like Rodriguez, I like Sturridge, I like Rondon. They've got a couple of injuries that they picked up at Anfield, but if they get them fit and available, I think they could string a few wins together to push.
Rob?
West Brom, because before Alan Pardew got the job, let's not forget, he only won 6 games in a calendar year at Crystal Palace. So can he get enough wins? West Brom only won 3 this season. West Brom, Huddersfield definitely, myself and Stephen were at the game against Liverpool tonight. They were woeful, got nothing going forward.
Okay.
And I would say Watford. I mean, Watford. Watford.
So it feels like they're so far out of it, but that's a win. It's one win, and they're right back in it. Martin?
Well, I think I don't know is the easy answer. I've never seen it like this before. I do feel Huddersfield.
You've still got to pick three.
You've still got to pick three, yeah.
Well, I will do then. I think I'll go with two of the teams that have come up: Newcastle and Huddersfield, and I think maybe Southampton might.
And so you as well, you think maybe West Brom might...
Southampton, that's their first win today in 13 matches, Southampton, and that's quite remarkable. I think they might drop back into their poor form again.
Martin's right, though, when he says he's never seen it like that before. I mean, you just pause for a moment. I mean, that is... It is incredible. 27 points, Watford, 24 Huddersfield, 3, separating all those sides. Right, the good news is there's still more to come from Premier League tonight, including your favourite hard man. After the break, we're going to be talking about football hard men. I think you'd agree we've got two of them in the studio with us. We'll let you work out who's who. What about me? And we'll see you after the break for the final part of this evening's Premier League tonight. See you shortly. Welcome back to the final part of Premier League tonight. Joel Solo says, when does Martin Keown start doing stand-up? He is hilarious. Premier League. Premier League tonight is must-watch TV. Right, our final king. Favourite hard men in football. Are they as popular as they once were? What's the future for them? Lots to talk about. First of all, let's hear from you.
OK, so if you're looking at a club hard man for West Brom, I don't think you can look much past Claudio Jacob. I know a lot of people would have seen James McLean. I don't think he's particularly hard, man. I just think he can't really tackle very well.
There can be no other than the chap who ended his career at Swansea, former Liverpool hard man, Tommy Smith, the man that Bill Shankly said wasn't born, he was quarried.
Look no further than Big Duncan Ferguson, the icon, the legend. 8 red cards to his name, says everything you need to know about being a hard man. Just ask Freddie Bobic or Stefan Freund or Herman Hreiderson to name but a few.
Newcastle's Czech Toyota, what a man, what a competitor he was. Took one for the team, got booked almost every game, we're going flying in. You know, he scored an absolute worldie against Arsenal when we were 4-0 down. We came back to draw. He is well remembered on Tyneside in our hearts, and God rest his soul.
Arsenal, don't make me laugh. We don't have one. The closest we've got to a hard man is Xhaka, and he's terrible and keeps getting himself sent off. Oh, for the days of Keown, Adams, Bold.
Southampton hard man, I'm going to go for Franny Benali. Back in the 90s, if you went anywhere near Le Tissier, you could guarantee that Franny Benali was going to come and sort you out.
The days of Keown, Adams and Bold. Did you feel like hard men?
No, not at all. Listen, I played in the early 80s, and some of the guys back then were just, I played against Billy Whitehurst, and it was just almost criminal, some of the challenges that you saw.
He was tough, though.
It was a tough, it was a different game.
He was tough. He used to wear red Puma in the England training with studs in like that. And you'd come off, and you'd be like, Matt, I thought we were mates, we've got a game on Saturday. You used to have stud marks all over the place.
Well, right.
He used to play in training like he did in the games.
Oh, yeah.
So he didn't even know he was tough.
I remember when he first got into the Liverpool first team, he wasn't a respecter of reputations. And Arthur Cox said to me there was a tackle between you two, and I thought the ball had a headache afterwards because he did put the tackles in.
Why
he could take it as well.
Did you have a reputation? Did you?
Not really. I just wanted to win the ball. But you know, you think of over the years, the players the ones you respect most, the ones who get up after the challenge. And I think Mark Hughes. I played against him at 19. And I was still knocking lumps out of him at 36, 37. I don't know how many battles we may have had over the years. No complaints, got on with his job, and I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Take us inside a battle between you and Mark Hughes out on the pitch. What was it? What did it feel like from your perspective?
Well, it was a sort of territory thing. He was he protected the ball as well as anybody. And so the battle started long before the ball was delivered, because you knew there was a point on the ground where you need to take charge of it. So there was a lot of wrestling. A lot of fighting, a lot of scrapping. You know, each one of us would have their little pop through the game, and then a handshake at the end of it, and that was good enough for me.
There's a question that's come in here for you, actually, Stephen, from Cjo. Says, Jake, being a Liverpool fan, I'd love to know who Stevie G considers as the hardest teammate he shared the Liverpool dressing with. My guess, Pepe Reina, is what they say. Before we get the answer from you, what would you consider a hard teammate?
Lots of different things really. Played with Suarez, he never went in the treatment room. Played on with injuries, used to get kicked all over the pitch. He'd have bruises all over the place, but he'd be robust and available for every game. That's tough for me. Jamie Carragher, very robust, mentally strong, tough, get kicked, he's up, he'd kick people. There's all different ways to be tough as a footballer. And I think some of the ones that look tough and bounce around the football pitch acting tough are probably the ones that are not. And I think where this comes from, Scott Brown. I've played against Scott Brown, and he's a tough competitor, a really good player, and I think it's a bit out of order, like sort of saying he's not fair, if you like, especially the career he's had. So, it all comes down to him going in tough on a young kid who plays for Hearts, and I think that's the game, and for me, too much of it's going out of the game. I think you should be competitive, but as long as it's fair.
It feels like there was a time when you could name for almost every team a sort of an enforcer or someone who would set the tone for that team. But we talk a lot now in these studios about a lack of leaders, don't we, in the Premier League? Do you agree with Stephen that maybe it's changed, though?
Yeah, that's it. You know, my hardest opponent, not in terms of was Stevie. I've said it many a time that not only if he was a 50-50, you knew he was coming sprinting towards you and he was going to go in fair and try and clatter you in the ball. He'd run past you, you know, to score a goal. He'd go and get the ball off the back foot. So in terms of tough, because he was tough, but the hardest opponent I've ever had in the Premier League, and I played against Vieira, Keown, you know, some of the greats, and he was by far and away the best.
But they were all tough, you know. And you play against Leicester, you'd have him and Lennon, and everyone's tough in different ways. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
People bring different things. For example, you could play against Frank Lampard and he'd be tough because he'd be relentless running into the box all the time.
It's not just about putting in a half tackle on
someone. Joey Barton, and Joey Barton would want to cut you in half. So there's different ways.
When you played at Wimbledon,
there's different ways of being tough.
You played at Wimbledon and you'd stand in the tunnel and you'd be outside the Wimbledon dressing room and Vinnie Jones is headbutting the toilet door. And you know, I've got Manny Petit in front of me with Patrick Vieira, and they're, Martin, what is this? And I said, well, you think he's hard? Okay, I show him, I kill him. You know when you go out on the pitch with people like that, that you're going to win some games of football. They weren't frightened of anything.
Gerry Taggart was tough. You know, my own teammate, he clipped me around the head just before half time. You know, and he said, see you at the dressing room at half time. Yeah, so I give the ball away. And he clipped me, and I went into the changing room. And Martin O'Neill thought was going to have a go at Gerry, and he did. He said, I told you, Gerry, don't give the ball to Sav. So basically, it was a double whammy. Not only got a clip off Gerry Taggart, the manager was hammering me, saying, don't pass the ball to me.
Amazing.
Anyway.
And the stands echoing that sentiment. Thanks ever so much for your company. I'm joking. Thanks for your company. It's been good fun tonight. Right, let me quickly tell you what's still to come. We've got the FA Cup replay from Wembley on Wednesday night, the North London derby, followed by Premier League today on Sunday morning before Huddersfield Bournemouth. Gents, that was an absolute pleasure, not just for me, for everyone at home to sit and listen to that. So thank you for the last hour. Thank you for your company, and the last word is yours. Good night.